Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I could not make another video after my last video because revisiting these old memories takes a lot of toll on you. And going down that road where all the bad experiences have happened to you kind of takes out the best of you, and you cannot concentrate on anything positive. But let's continue. After my arrest, I was taken to Peterborough OPP detachment. Now, at home, you might think that they came for my firearms. So they would take my firearms. But that was not just the case. There was much more that these people came for. They came for my computers. The informant, as I mentioned, gave them the description of all the computers that he or she or whatever saw at my house. While I was living in Donlands and Danforth area, I would often come back from outside and I would see the proximity light. You know, when there's like a porch lights that have proximity sensors. The lights were still on and I had gone for like half an hour. So I was kind of having this kind of an idea that there were people behind me coming and visiting my house at that time. There was another thing that was going on before, and I will talk about that as well. In the meantime, let's see what happened. Was that at home, they came from my computers. And this informant gave them the description of all my computers, laptops, even tablets. There I had this Asus Transformer tablet, even the iPod that I was often using while I was outside or going to the gym or going to work. They took that iPod, the old iPod Classic. I think I may have one of those things here. Anyway, it was one of those old iPods. I was locked up at Peterborough detachment of OPP. And as their squad, it wasn't just like one or two people. They had planned this thing. They were planning this arrest of mine with several SWAT teams, I would say. Several teams were there. And I read in the notes later on of the police that they were there since like 3 a.m. in the morning. They arrested me at around 3:30, and they had already gathered at 3 a.m. So they were just staking out my house, and as soon as I got out, they arrested me. So everything was in place. They had planned this whole arrest of mine with several teams. And one of their guys actually wrote to the magistrate to get a warrant for my arrest, that somehow I was planning to get into some kind of firearms, or what do you call it, like a gunfight, in case somebody would come and try to arrest me. Seriously? So remember, when these people go, I'm going to name those people later on, they would swear in front of the magistrate just to get a warrant for your arrest. They would lie. So as soon as they entered my Peterborough house, which belonged to my brother, my niece, my oldest niece, she confronted them saying, "What are you doing? Why are you entering our house?" They shoved her, pushed her aside, like physically they shoved my niece. She was already going through a lot of things, and she was visibly shaken. She had a lot of trauma. And then they started pushing my brother's wife about this Scorpion that I had, saying it's a prohibited gun. Where did he get it? Remember, the RCMP always registers the firearms. So once you register like some kind of a restricted firearm, you have to register it with the RCMP, with the police. And ironically, the certificate of registration was in the mailbox when they came to my house of the Scorpion. They tried to push my brother's wife, asking her, where did he get this gun? This is a prohibited firearm. Like always they would use the word prohibited just to get something against me. They knew that they did not have much against me. Anyway, so they came to my holding cell, where I was actually locked up, and said, we're going to arrest your brother's wife if you don't tell us about the guns. There are certain firearms, there are certain prohibited things that we found over there. Yeah, unless you confess, we're going to arrest your brother's wife. I said, I'm not going to comment about anything because I had spoken to a lawyer and I had seen certain lawyer videos. I knew these people would lie. And that's exactly what happened. They came and they started lying to me. And I said, I'm not going to comment. They said, okay, we're going to arrest her. The police loves to lie in order to get any kind of confession that serves their case out of you. Now, they came to me saying, your brother's wife has given us a written statement that none of these things belong to her. So it's okay. You can talk to whatever lawyer you want to. Okay. And only you were involved in any of these illegal activities. Obviously, my brother's wife did not give them any written statement. They were again lying to their teeth. Now, they were as I said, that they were making several false claims under oath to get a warrant for my arrest. Amongst those people was OPP's Constable Paul Fernando Duarte. He's, or Duarte, if you may so call him. Paul Duarte is now, I think, has been promoted. Virtually everybody who was involved in my case got promoted. And the other person was Andrew Steinwall. He was also a constable. Now he's also been promoted. Now these are all firearms related, guns and gangs related people. So there was Toronto Police, there was OPP, and these people went to the magistrate and lied to get a warrant against me for my arrest. Okay. As I told you, that multiple teams had gathered, ranging from Toronto Police to OPP to RCMP, I think, impounded my car and tried to search the Ford Expedition that, in my previous video, you may have seen. The Ford Expedition was there, but it did not belong to me. But they tried to search that too. The police, all these teams, they even tore out the air conditioning walls. They put a dent. They actually broke the drywall that was in the basement where I was staying. And the next morning, there was this holding area. They took me to this, this common holding area where everybody goes, is taken before they appear in front of a judge. I got out into some very high restrictions and some very high high bonds. There was like a $20,000 each bond. My brother, his wife, and there was another doctor who was there. He was a family doctor, Dr. Sayed, posted my bail bond. And so it was in total like $60,000. And I was told to stay away from firearms. I had to report to the police when required. So from 7 a.m. till 12, I was allowed to go out of my house. But before midnight, I had to be at home. And in case I had to go out at night, I had to take one of my bonds people, my brother, his wife, or Dr. Sayed, along with me. It's not as simple as you think. The police, as I told you, had already spent hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to get me. And they did not rest. There were constantly vehicles following me around as I would get out of the house. My phone was being recorded. Everything was being done. There was an unmarked police car again, outside my house. They would follow me. Even if I was going outside to get a coffee, I think there was a place called, Coffee Time at that time. Even if I would go out to get a cup of coffee, there would be like a car parked across the street. Human minds have a tendency of recognizing patterns. If you see the same thing, you say deja vu. But if you keep seeing it, you have to investigate. As soon as I walked to that car, the car would just back up and just run away. Obviously, it was them. Not just then. I had to go get a lawyer in Toronto. His name is Edward Berlew. And they would follow me to the lawyer's office. Or if I was going anywhere, I was with my sister-in-law. She would accompany me. But there was a Chevy Avalanche following me. There was a Honda Ridgeline following me. There was some kind of Chevy Impala following me. A Ford Taurus following me. Different cars. They would do it. Like, you would think that, what exactly did I do, man? Like, how dangerous of a person am I that these teens are actually after me, following me one after another. In 2013, I was going to Chatham, Ontario from Peterborough because I had to appear for an in-person interview for Union Gas. I was applying for a job over there because lawyers cost money. Ed Berlew, that guy charges like $500, and with taxes, it's like $550 an hour. So even if he would lift a pin, you do the math. I spent like $36,000 or $40,000 on lawyer, and we will talk about that as well. So Peterborough to Union Gas, I think it's more than 500 kilometers. And I had to leave early because my curfew time was, I was in a curfew till 7 a.m. And I had to get back home before 12 at night. So I left at like 10 after 7 and then drive to Chatham. There was the interview was at 3 p.m. at Union Gas. I did my interview, got back into my car. I drove back to Toronto, had a meal, and then drove back to Peterborough. There was a motorway pileup at that time as well. Anyway, there was a car constantly following me from Peterborough to Chatham, back to Peterborough. Like, imagine the amount of government resources these people have that they would waste that amount following me for, I don't know how many, 800 or 900 kilometers. Let me look it up on Google Maps. And what's interesting is that anytime I would go to Toronto, there would be car following me, like constantly circling around. Several times I made a video. I took my sister's phone because they took my phone, but they did return it. But I was using a BlackBerry Curve. It did not have a good camera. But my sister-in-law had an iPhone, and I recorded a video of a person constantly following me. Even when we were down in Thorncliffe, this car was constantly following me. Several times I made a 911 complaint saying that there was this car constantly following me. I had no idea why was this car following me. Such a stupid person as I am. Like, why would somebody follow me around like so long? So I called the police on this random car following me. And the police were there. This car crossed me. I said, this is the car that was following me. The police went after him. The car took a right turn. The police cruiser took a right turn. And then less than a minute later, they came back. But what they did not know was that I had another friend standing across the street. I said, well, see where they're going. And he said that the car was stopped. The police were talking to that car. And then the car took off. The police came back to me and said, yeah, we lost the guy. See this, I think they call it like a thin blue line of where police would take side of their own people. So that's what exactly happened. I said, what happened? They said, well, the car evaded us. A uniformed police officer told me, lied to my face, the car evaded us. He said, well, so what are you doing here? What are you doing here? Well, show us your license and registration of the vehicle. Why do you want to see my license and registration of a vehicle when I was the one who made the complaint? But anyway, this is what happened. Now, they took my computer. They were not returning my computer. And this happened in August of 2012. I had to do my studies. I had to do my SAP courses in order to get another job. I had to practice my courses. So my brother, his wife, they gathered they gave me some money, like $1,500-$1,600, and I bought a new computer. Now, in regards to the charges, there were like, I think, 23 or 28 charges laid against me, against each firearm, storage, everything that they could find. I went into such deep depression because when I spoke to the lawyer, he told me that if you are likely looking at maybe like 6 to 8 months of jail time. I had never committed a crime. Remember, it was just a technicality. And being arrested, I'm probably the only person in my family who has ever been arrested. And being locked up, being humiliated like this was already too much, had taken too much toll on my mind, on my brain, on my family. While I was in Toronto, before my arrest, there was this person who emailed some friends of mine and then put me in a carbon copy as well, that there's this group of individuals who were after him and he wanted to escape from them. And he was on a visit visa to Canada and he was doing his studies as a doctor. So I told him he can stay for a few months at my place because my place was empty. As stupid as I am, I wanted to help people out. So this group, they are called Qadianis, but they refer to themselves as Ahmadis. As if you're a Canadian, you would understand that this group is very strong in Canada. They have very strong political ties, official ties with the Canadian government and everybody. They are not considered Muslims by the rest of the Muslim community, not just in Pakistan, the world over, because they believe in another person as a prophet. As a Muslim, we believe that Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him, is the final messenger, final prophet of God. But this group believes in some one-eyed guy from the 1800s as their prophet. So obviously we don't consider them as Muslims. So we get into debates with these people. There was a debate about to happen, and I was down in Toronto. I picked up some of their newspapers. Some guy said, hey, don't take these newspapers. These were free newspapers, by the way. Free newspapers. So those newspapers, I took some of them, put them in my car so that I could distribute and I could study what was written in those newspapers if something was published. Because we had like this debate group. So I took like a few of them, a bunch of them actually. I put them in my car. I went into the mosque to pray. I got back out and I went back to Peterborough. A few days later, I think about a week later, like a few days later actually, I got a call from a private number. He's such and such detective speaking from Peterborough, from Toronto Police Services, and you were observed stealing newspapers. Now, in my mind, I'm thinking like, why would I steal something that's free? But he did not care. And I said, well, I don't know. Are you sure it was me? He said, yeah, you were observed such and such newspaper. I said, must be some kind of a mistake because I didn't steal anything like that. And then he said that. He said, you're out on conditions, aren't you? I said, what? You're out on conditions, aren't you? So I'm going to tell you something. You come here tomorrow to Toronto and surrender yourself to such and such precinct. I think there was one precinct in downtown Toronto. And then otherwise we're going to get a warrant for your arrest and get a whole SWAT team and put you under arrest at your Peterborough house. I called my brother and he was surprised, like, what? And my brother was working in Alberta at that time. He wasn't in Toronto. So, not even in Peterborough. So he was in Alberta working. He took an overnight flight and there was a snowstorm. I said, well, I have to surrender myself to the police if something like that has happened. I told him I'm going to the police station. He said, don't go yet, I'm on my way. I said, well, the guy told me that be there before 12 and it's already like 11:35, so I can't wait. I went to the police station, surrendered myself. First, they did not understand what I was talking about. And then when they found out, their whole attitude changed about me. And this guy came over. He said, "You're arrested. You're under arrest for mischief to property." I said, "What?" He yelled out in my face, like, police have this weird attitude. He yelled at my face, "Mischief to property. You don't have to agree with what I'm saying. You just have to understand." I said, "Okay." Put my hand behind my back, stripped me naked, and locked me up overnight. I spoke to my lawyer, Ed Berlew. He said, "Don't say anything." And the next day, the charges were dropped. Obviously, they were bogus charges, but so they were dropped. But that happened. The lawyer who actually got the charges against me dropped told me to come visit him. He had his office in downtown Toronto as well. And the lawyer told me that, "I don't know what you did to these people, but Toronto police really hate you. Because something like this shouldn't be a police case, but they hate you. And I spoke to them, and they wanted you to be prosecuted for this." So this happened, and about a month later, I got a conditional discharge from Peterborough Court about my case. Now, this conditional discharge was that I had to surrender all my firearms, everything related to firearms, which basically means like even bullets. And that was about a loss. That was like a loss of about $20,000 to $25,000 on my part, because I loved firearms, and it was really heavy on me. And I had to keep peace, be of good behavior. And I had to do some kind of a community service hours. I think there was like some 15 or something, 30 hours of community service. And I had to report to my parole officer, I think. I forgot what you call them. And that same day in March of 2013, I landed a job in Toronto as an SAP consultant as well. But the thing was that until I had done my reporting to this officer, and she would write down that it's okay, I have done all my community service work, I could not leave the residence where I was before. I had to travel from Peterborough to Toronto every day. I think it was near Richmond Hill, and back for work. But I got a conditional discharge, and the conditional discharge a year later would turn into absolute discharge. But remember, it wasn't a conviction. So that was a sigh of relief for me. I did lose all my firearms, and Peterborough Examiner wrote an article about it. I will share that as well. There are certain things that I may have skipped, but I had to tell this part of my story to the world. If you're interested, go ahead and listen to the whole thing. If you're not, there's more to come. And I thought that everything was over and I was free. I could not have been any more wrong, because the worst still was yet to come. See you guys later in the next video. I promise I'm going to put another video sooner.